The neon sign of Chen's kitchen flickered in the perpetual twilight of New Shanghai's dome, its warm glow a defiant splash of color against the sterile grays of the consortium-controlled city. Sarah Chen wiped her hands on her apron and gazed through the restaurant's weathered window at the stream of human workers trudging home from their shifts at the synthetic food factories. The irony wasn't lost on her. Just beyond those walls, machines churned out perfectly engineered nutrient paste while she stood guard over one of the last bastions of real cooking on Earth. The familiar weight of her grandmother's cleaver provided comfort as she chopped fresh vegetables, each precise cut a small act of rebellion. Real ingredients were hard to come by these days, but Sarah had her ways. The underground farming collectives trusted her, knew she was keeping something vital alive in this sterilized world. "Order up," she called, sliding a bowl of hand-pulled noodles through the service window. The rich aroma of star anise and slow-simmered broth filled the small space, drawing appreciative sighs from her regular customers. These weren't just meals she was serving. They were memories, connections to a world before the consortium arrived with their promises of perfect nutrition and ecological efficiency. The door chime rang, and Sarah looked up expecting another weary factory worker. Instead, she froze, her hand instinctively tightening on her cleaver. A figure stood in the doorway, hunched and trembling, wrapped in what looked like shimmering fabric but moved like living tissue. Through gaps in the material, Sarah caught glimpses of iridescent skin that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The figure swayed, then collapsed. Sarah was moving before she could think better of it, years of martial arts training making her movements swift but cautious as she approached. The protective instincts that made her feed stray cats and smuggle extra portions to hungry children kicked in hard. "Hey," she called softly, crouching beside the fallen figure. "Are you hurt?" The fabric shifted, revealing a face that was almost human, but not quite, delicate features framed by what looked like living tendrils that changed color like mood rings, currently a pale, sickly white. Golden eyes with vertical pupils met Sarah's, filled with fear and desperation. "Food," the creature whispered in accented English. "Please, real food." Sarah glanced at the street outside. Helping unregistered aliens was strictly forbidden under consortium law. She'd lose her license at best, face reconditioning at worst. But there was something in those alien eyes that called to her, a hunger that went deeper than mere physical need. "Can you walk?" she asked, already helping the stranger up. "My kitchen's in the back. Let's get you out of sight." The alien was surprisingly light, as if their bones were hollow. Sarah guided them through the restaurant, nodding reassuringly to her concerned regulars. They'd keep quiet. Everyone here had secrets they needed kept. In the kitchen's warm sanctuary, Sarah helped the alien onto a stool. Up close, she could see the signs of severe malnutrition. Their iridescent skin had a dull, flaking quality, and the color-shifting tendrils moved slavishly. "I'm Sarah," she said, keeping her voice gentle as she moved to the cooking station. "What's your name?" "Zixora," the alien replied, their voice musical despite its weakness. I've traveled far. The synthesized food, it doesn't sustain us. My people are dying." Sarah's hands moved automatically, gathering ingredients. "Tell me what you need. What can you eat?" Zixara's tendrils shifted to a pale blue. "We require bioresonance, living energy in food, prepared with," they struggled for the word, intention. "Care. The consortium's processed nutrition is dead. Empty." Sarah nodded, understanding flowing through her like warm broth. She'd always known there was something special about food prepared with love, something machines could never replicate. "Watch," she said, reaching for her grandmother's cleaver. "I'll make you something real." She worked with focused intensity, letting her ki flow through her movements as her grandmother had taught her. Fresh ginger and garlic hit hot oil, their sharp fragrance filling the air. Mushrooms followed, then tender greens from the hidden gardens. She added her secret blend of herbs, the ones that made people's eyes light up with remembered joy. As she cooked, she felt Zixara watching with growing fascination. The alien's tendrils had shifted to a deep purple, and their luminescence seemed to pulse in rhythm with the sizzling wok. "The energy," Zixara whispered. "I can feel it. How are you?" Sarah smiled, ladling the finished dish into a bowl. Steam carried complex aromas to every corner of the kitchen. "My grandmother always said cooking was about feeding the soul, not just the body. Maybe that's what your people call bioresonance. Here, try this." Zixara's hands trembled as they accepted the bowl. At the first taste, their entire body lit up with a soft golden glow. Tears that looked like liquid starlight rolled down their cheeks. This is. Their tendrils swirled with colors Sarah hadn't seen before. "I haven't felt nourishment like this since before the consortium drove us from our world." Sarah watched them eat, satisfaction warming her chest. She'd seen hunger before, but this was different. This wasn't just about survival, it was about connection, about the fundamental right to find joy in sustenance. As Zixara finished the meal, their luminescence had strengthened, their movements more fluid. They looked at Sarah with those remarkable golden eyes. "You've saved my life. But there are others, more of my kind, hiding in the city, starving." Sarah glanced at her kitchen, at the small stock of precious real ingredients she'd managed to accumulate. It wasn't much, but she thought of her grandmother, who had fed entire neighborhoods during hard times, who had taught her that food was love made visible. "Tell me where," she said, already reaching for her apron. "We'll need to be careful, but I'm not letting anyone starve in my city. Not human, not alien, not anyone." Zixara's tendrils swirled with deep indigo gratitude, Sarah somehow knew. As she began preparing more meals, she felt the weight of her decision, the danger she was inviting into her life. But her hands moved with certainty, her grandmother's cleaver flashing in the kitchen's warm light. Sometimes, she thought, the most revolutionary acts were also the simplest. Feeding the hungry, sharing what you had, choosing kindness over fear. The neon sign of Chen's kitchen continued to flicker outside, but inside, something new was beginning. Something that tasted like hope. 3 days after feeding her first alien refugee, Sarah's kitchen had become an improvised sanctuary. She worked through the night, her wok dancing with flames, as she prepared dishes for a growing number of hidden nurturer. Each alien's bioluminescence told a story of desperate flight and gnawing hunger, their colors strengthening with each carefully prepared meal. "The ginger," Zixara said, watching Sarah's hands blur over the cutting board. "It carries strong energy signatures, like the root systems on our home world." Their tendrils had gained a healthy sheen, shifting through shades of interested green as they observed Sarah's technique. Sarah nodded, muscle memory guiding the knife. "It's alive even after being harvested. My grandmother taught me to listen to ingredients, to understand what they want to become." She paused, glancing at the alien who hadn't left her side since that first night. "Tell me about your world. What did you eat there?" Zixara's luminescence dimmed slightly, a wash of melancholy blue rippling across their skin. "We were cultivators. Our cities were living gardens, every meal a collaboration between grower and preparer. The resonance had to be perfect, too weak, and it couldn't nourish us, too strong, and it would overwhelm our systems." The alien's tendrils curled inward, a gesture Sarah had learned meant deep emotion. The consortium couldn't understand. They saw our ability to derive nutrition from bioresonance as inefficient. They wanted us to adapt to their synthetic provisions, to become like every other conquered species. Sarah's knife stilled, but you couldn't. "We tried." Zixara moved closer, their natural phosphorescence casting warm patterns across the cooking surfaces. "Many died in those first months. The synthesized food was empty, like trying to sustain ourselves on shadows. That's when the resistance began." A soft chime from Sarah's security system interrupted them. Through the kitchen's hidden camera feed, she saw 3 more figures in shimmer cloth waiting in the alley. Their deteriorating luminescence marked them as nurturer refugees. Help me prepare the next batch, Sarah said, already reaching for fresh vegetables. She'd been teaching Zixara basic cooking techniques, finding that the aliens' natural sensitivity to bioresonance gave them an intuitive understanding of food preparation. As they worked side by side, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Whenever Zixara touched an ingredient after she prepared it, the food seemed to glow with enhanced energy. The aliens' tendrils would shift to deep gold, resonating with the dishes in a way that reminded Sarah of tuning forks finding harmony. "There's something different about your cooking," Zixara said softly, their golden eyes wide with wonder. "The resonance, it's unlike anything in our records. Stronger, but also more intimate, personal." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I just cook the way my grandmother taught me, with intention, with love," Zixara finished. "We have no word for it in our language, but I'm learning. The energy you infuse into food, it carries emotional imprints. It's why we're growing stronger faster than we ever have on foreign sustenance." The security chime sounded again, more urgent this time. Sarah glanced at the feed and felt her heart skip. A consortium patrol was moving down the street, their sleek uniforms and augmented visors a stark contrast to the worn buildings around them. "Back room," she whispered, guiding Zixara toward the hidden storage area where other nurturer were resting. "Stay quiet." She barely sealed the concealed door when the patrol entered her restaurant. Their leader, face obscured by a mirrored visor, approached the counter. "Citizen Chen," the officer's voice was artificially modulated. "We've detected unusual energy signatures in this sector. You're aware that harboring non-registered xenoforms is a Class 1 offense." Sarah wiped her hands on her apron, the picture of casual confusion. "Just cooking dinner for my regulars, officer. Real ingredients can produce all sorts of readings compared to synthetic food. Would you like to try some? My red braised pork is particularly good tonight." The officer's visor scanned the restaurant. Sarah's heart pounded, but she kept her breathing steady, focusing on the familiar weight of her cleaver. Behind her, the wok sizzled innocently. "Your establishment's continued use of organic ingredients is inefficient," the officer said. "The consortium provides adequate nutrition for all citizens. These traditional practices are unnecessary." Sarah's fingers tightened on her cleaver's handle. "Food is culture, officer. The consortium promised to respect Earth's traditions when they arrived. Traditions evolve." The officer's visor lingered on her cooking station. "We'll be monitoring this sector closely. For your own safety, consider transitioning to approved synthetic options." After they left, Sarah waited 10 long minutes before reopening the hidden room. She found Zixara and the others huddled together, their combined bioluminescence dimmed to near darkness. "It's okay," she assured them, already moving back to her wok. "But we'll need to be more careful. Zixara, help me finish these dishes. The others need to eat and move on before dawn." As they resumed cooking, Zixara's tendrils brushed Sarah's arm. "You risked everything just now. Why?" Sarah thought of her grandmother, who had kept her restaurant open through wars and famines, who had taught her that food was a bridge between souls. She thought of the nurturers' living cities, destroyed by those who couldn't understand that efficiency wasn't everything. "Because some things are worth preserving," she said, letting her ki flow into the simple act of nourishing others. "Because everyone deserves a taste of home." In the warm light of her kitchen, human and alien worked together, creating meals that were more than sustenance. Each dish was an act of defiance, each shared meal a small victory against those who would reduce life to mere survival. And if Sarah noticed that Zixara's luminescence glowed brightest when their hands touched, if she felt her own heart resonating with something beyond friendship, well, that was another kind of hunger altogether. The discovery happened during the midnight preparation of curry. Sarah had just added turmeric to sizzling onions when Zixara gasped, their entire body flaring with brilliant light. The resonance, they whispered, tendrils whirling in excited patterns Sarah had never seen before. "It's evolving." Sarah paused her stirring, watching as Zixara's bioluminescence pulsed in sync with the steam rising from the wok. Over the past weeks, she'd noticed their shared cooking becoming more powerful, but this was different. The air itself seemed to hum with potential. Your technique has always been exceptional, Zixara continued, moving closer to examine the spices Sarah used. But now, when we cook together, the energy signatures are approaching levels we thought possible only in our sacred gardens. The implications hit Sarah like steam from a hot wok. Is that why more of your people keep finding their way here? The number of nurturers seeking refuge in her kitchen had tripled in the past week alone. They can sense it. Zixara's tendrils shifted to a thoughtful purple. We're an empathic species, Sarah. What you create here, it calls to us, reminds us of home. Their conversation was interrupted by a subtle vibration from the early warning system Sarah had installed. The hidden display showed a group of 5 nurturer approaching through the back alleys, their bioluminescence dangerously dim. But behind them, consortium drones, Sarah hissed, recognizing the sleek shapes following the refugees. They're being tracked. Without hesitation, she killed the kitchen lights and activated the scrambling field she'd bought from a resistance tech dealer. It would buy them minutes at best. Get them inside, she ordered, already moving to her storage room. We need to mask their energy signatures fast. The next few minutes were controlled chaos. As Zixara ushered the exhausted refugees inside, Sarah prepared her most powerful dishes with desperate efficiency. Her grandmother's cleaver flew through ingredients, each cut precise despite the darkness. She could feel Zixara's presence behind her, the combined energy making the food glow with subtle power. The first refugee, a juvenile whose tendrils had faded to almost colorless, took one bite of Sarah's specially prepared dumplings and lit up like a sunrise. The others followed suit, their bioluminescence strengthening with each mouthful until it matched the ambient light of the kitchen. The drones will be here soon, Zixara warned, their own light dimmed to help conceal the others. Even with masked signatures, they'll scan the building. Sarah looked at her kitchen, at the faces of those who had risked everything for real nourishment. An idea formed, dangerous but possible. Your people, she said, pulling out her largest wok. You said you were cultivators. Could you, with proper food, affect the growth of plants? Zixara's tendrils curled with interest. Yes, but the hydroponic garden on my roof, Sarah continued, already gathering ingredients. Help me make something special, something with maximum resonance. Understanding dawned in Zixara's golden eyes. Together, they created a dish unlike anything either had made before. Sarah poured all her skill, all her intention into the preparation, while Zixara channeled their species' natural abilities through each ingredient. The result was a broth that glowed with its own inner light. They barely finished feeding it to the rooftop plants before the drones arrived. Sarah watched through her security feed as the machines scanned the building, their sensors seeking the unique energy patterns of nurturer bioluminescence. But where they should have found clustered readings in her kitchen, they detected only the diffuse glow of rapidly growing plants, their energy signatures amplified and scattered by the specially prepared broth. The drones lingered for long minutes before moving on, their protocols unable to distinguish between natural plant growth and hidden refugees. Only when they disappeared into the neon-lit haze did Sarah allow herself to breathe. That was incredible, Zixara said, their tendrils now a brilliant azure of excitement. The way you thought to use our own abilities to hide us. No one has ever. They trailed off, their luminescence shifting to deeper, more intimate colors. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. Over the weeks of working together, cooking together, she'd grown increasingly aware of Zixara's presence. The way their light seemed to brighten around her, how their tendrils would unconsciously reach toward her when they worked side by side. We make a good team, she said softly, conscious of how close they were standing. Your knowledge, my cooking. It's more than that. Zixara's voice had taken on a musical quality she'd never heard before. What we create together, It's unprecedented. The resonance between us. They were interrupted by sounds of wonder from the roof garden. The refugees had emerged from hiding to find the plants transformed. Vegetables that had been seedlings hours ago now bore fruit, their growth accelerated by the combined power of human cooking and nurturer cultivation. "We could feed more than just refugees," Zixara said, their eyes bright with possibility. "If we could replicate this, teach others. We could rebuild your gardens," Sarah finished, understanding blooming like herbs in sunlight. Not just hide from the consortium, but create something new, something that proves there's more to sustenance than their synthetic efficiency. Zixara's tendrils reached out, gently brushing Sarah's cheek. The contact sent tingles of energy through her skin. "You've given my people more than food, Sarah. You've given us hope." "Given me?" They hesitated, their luminescence shifting to colors she'd never seen before, colors that spoke of feelings beyond translation. Sarah caught their hand, marveling at how natural it felt despite that alien nature. In her grandmother's kitchen, surrounded by the fruits of their combined talents, she realized that some forms of hunger couldn't be satisfied by food alone. "Tomorrow," she said, "we start teaching others. Every refugee who comes through here learns not just to eat, but to cook, to grow, to combine our knowledge." Zixara's answering glow rivaled the neon signs outside. Together, they looked out over their transformed garden, where human vegetables flourished under alien light. It was just the beginning, Sarah knew. A taste of what was possible when different species came together to create rather than consume. And if her heart beat faster when Zixara's tendrils entwined with her fingers, well, that was another kind of recipe altogether. The transformation of Chen's kitchen happened gradually, then all at once. What began as a hidden refuge evolved into something unprecedented, a fusion of human culinary arts and nurturer cultivation techniques. The basement level, once used for storage, now housed rows of bioluminescent plants that pulsed with shared energy. Refugees became students, then teachers themselves. Sarah watched from her cooking station as Zixara guided a newly arrived nurturer through the basics of human food preparation. Their tendrils glowed with gentle encouragement as they demonstrated how to channel energy into the simple act of chopping vegetables. "Feel the intention," Zixara instructed, their voice carrying that musical lilt that made Sarah's heart flutter. Humans don't just cook with their hands, they cook with their entire being. Their emotions become part of the resonance. The students' luminescence brightened with understanding as they successfully infused a simple stir-fry with bio-resonant energy. Around them, other nurturer worked at different stations, each learning to combine their natural abilities with Earth's culinary traditions. "They're learning faster than we expected," Sarah said later, as she and Zixara prepared the evening's special dishes. Their shoulders brushed as they worked side by side, sending pleasant shivers through both of them. "But we're running out of space." Zixara's tendrils shifted thoughtfully, their golden eyes focused on the wok. "Word is spreading through the underground network. More of my people wake each day from synthetic stasis, sensing the energy we're creating here. They call it the awakening." Sarah paused in her cooking, struck by the weight of that word. What had started as simple survival had become something revolutionary. Each meal they prepared together wasn't just food. It was proof that the consortium's standardized approach to sustenance was fundamentally flawed. The security system chimed, but this time it wasn't refugees seeking shelter. The screen showed consortium enforcement units surrounding the building, their sleek armor reflecting the neon lights outside. "They know," Sarah breathed, her hand finding Zixara's instinctively. Someone must have talked. But Zixara's luminescence remained steady, their tendrils curling around Sarah's fingers with reassuring warmth. Or perhaps they finally realized they couldn't ignore us forever. "We've grown too strong, too visible." A voice boomed through external speakers. "Citizen Chen, your establishment has been marked for immediate synthetic conversion. Submit to inspection or face reconditioning." Sarah looked around her kitchen, at the refugees who had become family, at the garden they had grown together, at Zixara, whose presence had changed everything. "I won't let them destroy this." "We won't," Zixara corrected, their bioluminescence intensifying. "Remember what we discovered last week?" Sarah's eyes widened as she understood. During a late-night experiment, they had found that their combined abilities could do more than just enhance food. When they worked in perfect harmony, the bioresonance they created could affect the physical world in unexpected ways. "Everyone to the garden," Sarah commanded, already reaching for specific ingredients. The refugees moved with practiced efficiency, their own luminescence dimming to avoid detection. As enforcement units breached the front door, Sarah and Zixara worked with desperate speed. Into the largest wok went herbs known for protection, spices that represented strength, vegetables filled with life energy. Their movements synchronized perfectly, human and alien techniques merging into something entirely new. The first officers reached the kitchen just as the dish reached completion. Sarah felt Zixara's energy merge with her own as they channeled everything they had into the food. The resulting wave of bioresonance hit the consortium forces like a physical wall. Where it touched their synthetic components, circuits overloaded. Augmented visors cracked, weapon systems failed, and communication arrays went dark. The officers stumbled back, confronted with a power their technology couldn't process. "Impossible," one of them gasped, visor sparking. "The readings." But Sarah and Zixara weren't finished. As the refugees added their own energy from the rooftop garden, the entire building began to pulse with bioluminescent light. Plants grew at impossible speeds, their vines weaving protective barriers across windows and doors. "This is your only warning," Sarah announced, standing proud beside Zixara. "Chen's kitchen stays organic, and these people are under my protection." The enforcement units retreated, their supposedly superior technology useless against the combined power of human emotion and nurturer biology. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Later, as they tended to their strengthened gardens, Zixara turned to Sarah with an intensity that made their whole body glow. "There will be consequences. The consortium won't ignore such a direct challenge." Sarah reached out, letting her fingers trace the patterns of light that flowed across Zixara's skin. "Let them come. What we've built here, what we've discovered together, it's worth fighting for." Sarah, Zixara's voice softened, their tendrils gently entwining with her hair. "There's something you should know about nurturer biology. When we form deep connections, particularly with those who share our resonance." "Is that why I can feel your emotions sometimes?" Sarah asked, suddenly understanding the strange sensations she'd been experiencing. "Why cooking together feels like our energies are merging." Zixara's luminescence shifted to those intimate colors Sarah had come to recognize. "Yes, my people call it soul bonding. It's rare enough between nurturer, but between species, it's unprecedented." Sarah thought about all the barriers they'd already broken, all the impossible things they'd accomplished together. Maybe that's exactly what the universe needs right now, something unprecedented. Their foreheads touched, and Sarah gasped as Zixara's bioluminescence flowed over her skin, marking her with swirling patterns of light. Around them, the garden pulsed in harmony with their combined energy, a physical manifestation of what they had created together. They both knew the real battle was just beginning. The consortium would return with new weapons, new tactics. But in that moment, surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor and the family they had built, Sarah and Zixara found strength in their unprecedented connection. Something new was growing in Chen's kitchen, not just plants or food or revolution, but a love that defied the very boundaries of species. And like everything they cooked together, it was absolutely delicious. The bioluminescent patterns on Sarah's skin hadn't faded since her soul bond with Zixara formed. If anything, they grew stronger each day, shifting colors with her emotions just like her partner's tendrils. The consortium quarantine around Chen's kitchen had reached its second week, but inside, something extraordinary was happening. There, Sarah said, guiding a young nurturer's hands through the motion of kneading dough. Feel how the glutens respond to your energy. Her own fingers glowed softly as she worked, the bioresonance now as natural as breathing. The students' tendrils rippled with amazement as the dough began to emit a gentle light. Around them, the kitchen hummed with activity as other refugees turned students practiced combining their abilities with human cooking techniques. Zixara appeared beside them, their luminescence automatically synchronizing with Sarah's. The genetic analysis is complete, they said quietly, drawing Sarah aside. What we suspected about your family line, it's true. Sarah looked at her glowing hands, thinking of her grandmother's teachings about qi and cooking with intention. We're different. Your DNA contains markers we've only seen in ancient nurturer records, Zixara explained, their tendrils gentle against Sarah's cheek. Somewhere in Earth's past, our species must have connected. The genes for processing bioresonance went dormant in most humans, but in some families. Like mine, Sarah finished, understanding blooming like yeast in warm water. That's why my grandmother's cooking always seemed magical. Why people said her food could heal hearts and mend relationships. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent chimes from the security system. On the monitors, they watched consortium forces assembling outside the quarantine zone. These weren't regular enforcement units. They wore specialized containment suits and carried equipment Sarah had never seen before. They've adapted, Zixara observed, their luminescence dimming with concern. Those suits, they're designed to resist bioresonant energy. Through the windows, they could see the quarantine field shimmer as the consortium began their advance. The street outside filled with an ominous fog, some kind of synthetic dampening agent designed to suppress their powers. But Sarah felt no fear. Instead, a deep certainty filled her, resonating through her bond with Zixara. Get everyone to the kitchen, she ordered. It's time they learned the final lesson. As their students gathered, Sarah and Zixara moved to the central cooking station. The ingredients they'd been saving for this moment lay ready. Rare herbs from the Amazon, vegetables grown in their enhanced garden, spices that carried generations of human emotion and intention. What we're about to do, Sarah addressed the assembled nurturer, her skin glowing brighter with each word, goes beyond cooking or cultivation. It's about understanding the true nature of nourishment. Zixara continued seamlessly, their voices harmonizing. The consortium believes in separation, synthetic from organic, efficiency from emotion, species from species. But true sustenance comes from connection. Together, they began to cook. But this wasn't like their previous meals. As their energies merged through their soul bond, Sarah accessed genetic memories she hadn't known she possessed. Her hands moved in patterns older than human civilization, weaving bioresonance into each ingredient. The assembled refugees gasped as the kitchen itself began to transform. Plants burst from every surface, not chaotic, but intricately ordered, forming living architecture that pulsed with shared energy. The walls themselves became permeable membranes, similar to the ancient nurturer cities, but enhanced by human innovation. Outside, the consortium forces breached the quarantine field. Their dampening fog rolled through the streets, suppressing the bioluminescence of everything it touched. But when it reached Chen's kitchen, something unexpected happened. The fog itself began to glow. The final secret, Sarah explained, her voice carrying through the transformed space, isn't in the ingredients or the technique. It's in understanding that everything, every particle, every emotion, every form of energy is connected. Even their synthetic suppressants are just another form of life waiting to be awakened. The consortium troops burst through the door, weapons ready, only to find their containment suits responding to the bioresonance in ways their designers never imagined. The synthetic materials began to pulse with organic light, transforming from barriers into conduits. Impossible, the squad leader breathed, watching as their protective gear merged with the living architecture around them. Our technology. It's being reminded of its origins, Zixara finished. Everything synthetic comes from organic materials. You didn't eliminate nature with your processing, you just made it forget itself. Through their bond, Sarah felt Zixara's joy as they witnessed their students, human and nurturer alike, channeling their combined techniques. The kitchen had become a nexus of transformation, each meal prepared there carrying the potential to awaken dormant connections. The consortium forces found themselves unable to maintain their offensive. Their weapons, their suits, even their synthetic implants responded to the awakened energy around them. One by one, they retreated, their carefully constructed barriers between organic and synthetic dissolving. In the aftermath, Sarah and Zixara stood in their transformed kitchen, their luminescence painting intricate patterns across each other's skin. Through their bond, they shared not just thoughts and emotions, but a vision of the future. "This is just the beginning," Sarah said, watching their students experiment with their newfound understanding. "There must be others like me, humans with dormant nurturer genes, and if we can awaken synthetic materials, we can heal the divide between worlds," Zixara finished, their tendrils weaving through Sarah's hair. "Create places where all species can thrive together, where technology enhances nature instead of suppressing it." Their kiss tasted like stardust and spices, bioresonance flowing between them in waves that made the very air shimmer. Around them, Chen's kitchen had become more than a restaurant or a refuge. It was the seed of a new way of existing, proof that the most powerful revolutions often start with a simple meal shared between strangers. And in the glow of their combined light, both human and alien knew that love, like the best recipes, transcended all boundaries. News of what happened at Chen's kitchen spread through the consortium's territories like wildfire through dry brush. Security footage of the transformation went viral despite attempts to suppress it, showing how a simple human restaurant had become something that defied conventional science. 1 month after the failed raid, Sarah stood at her cooking station, now part of a living complex that blended human architecture with nurturer bioengineering. Her skin glowed with intricate patterns that matched Zixara's luminescence, their soul bond having grown stronger with each passing day. Another Groot from the European zone just arrived, Zixara announced, their tendrils swirling with excitement. 3 humans with active genetic markers and their nurturer partners. Sarah smiled, watching through the living walls as more refugees approached their sanctuary. What had started as a simple act of kindness, feeding a starving alien, had sparked a movement that was reshaping society. The consortium's regional governor is requesting a meeting, added Lai Wei, one of their first human students who had discovered her own dormant nurturer genes. Her skin had begun showing the first signs of bioluminescence. "They're calling it a diplomatic negotiation." "They're scared," Sarah said, expertly dicing ginger that glowed under her touch. "We're not just disrupting their food control systems anymore, we're challenging their entire worldview." The kitchen, now the heart of a growing community, hummed with activity. Humans and nurturer worked side by side, creating dishes that were more than food, they were catalysts for awakening. Each meal served sparked more transformations, activated more dormant genes, bridged more divides. "There's something else," Zixara said softly, drawing close enough that their energies merged in familiar warmth. "The medical tests are complete. Our compatibility, it's more than just spiritual or energetic." Sarah's hands stilled on her grandmother's cleaver, her heart racing. "You mean?" "Our genetic structures are already adapting, harmonizing through our bond." Zixara's luminescence shifted to those deep, intimate colors that only Sarah could fully interpret. "If we choose, we could be the first to have children, a true joining of our species." Before Sarah could respond, the security system chimed. But instead of another threat, the screen showed something unprecedented. A massive crowd approaching Chen's kitchen. Humans and aliens walked together, many already showing signs of awakening genes. And at their head, Consortium Leadership Council, Lai Wei breathed, recognizing the distinctive uniforms. All of them. Sarah and Zixara exchanged glances, their bond transmitting volumes of unspoken communication. Together, they walked to meet their former adversaries. The council members stood awkwardly in the living entrance hall, their synthetic augmentations pulsing faintly in response to the bioresonant environment. Their leader, a woman whose cybernetic enhancements seemed less extensive than the others, stepped forward. "We've reviewed the data," she said without preamble. "What you've achieved here, it contradicts everything we believed about optimal human development, about species separation, about the very nature of evolution." "That was your first mistake," Sarah replied, feeling Zixara's supportive presence beside her. "Believing that evolution only moves in one direction. That efficiency means eliminating variables rather than embracing them." "Your synthetic systems aren't our enemies," Zixara added. "They're just another form of life waiting to be remembered, to be awakened." As if in response, the council members' augmentations flickered with autonomous bioluminescence. The leader touched her glowing cybernetic arm with wonder. "We propose an alliance," she said. "Your knowledge of bioresonance, combined with our technology, we could transform every consortium territory into living cities. Not our sterile efficiency or your wild nature, but something new, something better." Sarah felt the weight of the moment, the infinite possibilities stretching before them. Through her bond with Zixara, she sensed their shared vision of the future, cities that breathed technology that enhanced rather than suppressed nature, children who carried the best of multiple species in their genes. "We'll need to establish some conditions," Sarah said, her grandmother's wisdom guiding her words. "Food will never again be used as a control mechanism. Every being has the right to real nourishment, to meals prepared with intention and love. And all species must be free to follow their natural paths," Zixara added, "including the path of connection between them." The negotiations lasted well into the night, conducted over a feast that combined the finest elements of human cuisine with nurturer bioresonance. Each dish served strengthened the bonds between former enemies, awakened more dormant potential, sparked more understanding. Later, in the quiet of their private garden, Sarah and Zixara stood wrapped in each other's light. Their hands rested together on Sarah's abdomen, where new life had already begun to stir, the first of a generation that would bridge the stars themselves. "Your grandmother would be proud," Zixara murmured, their tendrils gentle against Sarah's glowing skin. She understood it, didn't she? That food was never just about survival. "It's about connection," Sarah finished, turning to kiss her partner. "About creating something new from separate ingredients. About proving that the most beautiful things in the universe come from embracing differences, not erasing them." Above them, the stars shone through the living ceiling of what had once been a simple restaurant. Chen's kitchen had become a beacon, a symbol of what was possible, and fear gave way to understanding when barriers dissolved into bridges. And as their joined luminescence painted the night with new constellations, Sarah and Zixara knew that their story, like all the best recipes, would be passed down through generations, teaching the eternal truth that love, in all its forms, was the most essential ingredient of all.